So the NFT, what do you do? So it's like a digital replica of the sneaker, right?
Sometimes the NFTs typically contain an image of the sneaker. Sometimes there's additional artwork for it. So for Devontae's, it's actually a statue of him holding the sneaker, right? So we kind of made a statue of Devontae in the spirit of the Statue of Liberty, right? So it's like this oxidized copper, and like the sneaker is sort of floating above his hand in the metaverse, right? But yeah, typically there will be a depiction of the sneaker in the NFT.
Yeah. So what do you do with it? So what do you look at on your computer? I mean, it's not like artwork you can put on your wall. So like, what do you do with it?
First and foremost, you get into the events, right? So we deliver utility in the NFT, like that's your ticket to get into the event. And then secondarily, you can authenticate that you own a legitimate pair of the sneakers, right? So think about a Rolex. If you're selling a Rolex on a secondary market, it's a lot more valuable to have the original certificate of authenticity than without it. We think of NFTs the same way. We happen to embed a chip inside the tongue of the sneaker that can always be scanned to, sort of layer back to this digital certificate of authenticity. But then in terms of like the digital artwork itself, there are digital galleries where you can display all the NFTs that you own. I think the use cases for that eventually will get more interesting. Right now, it's more of a novelty. But from an Endstate perspective, we think of it as the utility that it gets you in the real world as opposed to what you do with the digital artwork itself.
Gotcha. So I would, and we may disagree, which is fine, but I would think having a digital, kind of artwork on the wall that has value and you can kind of touch it and feel it and, and see it. So like I've not seen or heard of people saying, hey, I've got my, an NFT on the wall being kind of whatever it is. So some of that does happen, but I guess not much, correct?
Yeah. I think actually Samsung might have done like a smart TV that can like connect to your NFT gallery and is like a screensaver. It will cycle through your NFT. So there's definitely some work being done there.
Wow. Amazing. And then from a price point, it's pretty much they're all custom runs on the sneakers in effect.
Yeah, it depends on who the collaborator is and what the quantity is, but it's definitely a premium product.
Interesting. So I wouldn't necessarily go to the store, like you'd have a run of the red bandana shoes as an example, where those, I think you said you sold 100 of them, right? So that's where do you pre-make them, or you say, here's the sneaker, and then you're going to kind of build it based on the orders?
It depends on the collaborator. We like to do the latter, obviously, right? Because then we're not taking on inventory risk.
Right.
But some, based on timing or the nature of the partnership, we do have to take an inventory position and get them manufactured ahead of time.
Gotcha. Fascinating. And then, so if I want to go, if I go to your site, there's not necessarily inventory of shoes to go do. So it's say with the Devontae Smith one might be a better example. So like how many of those are kind of, I don't know if you can say either you've sold or for sale, or kind of what the quantity of sales is going to be over whatever period of time?
Yeah. So there were 175 of those sold out. We also have another 50 pairs that were going to be exclusively available at a retail partner. So I mentioned we're doing an event with Devontae at a sneaker boutique. So the sneaker boutique is going to have 50 pairs available around that event. And then Devontae has some pairs that he's going to give to friends and family, but that's it. That's the whole collection is 250, very limited. 175 are made available for the public. So the only way to get them is either now at this retail event early next year, or through secondary sales.
Gotcha. So it's almost like in the art world, maybe like a seriograph, which is a replica of a painting. And, he might have, not that there's not just one original, but you have a limited quantity of that one, kind of, one of 250, 253, 250. It's that limited run. And then once those are all sold out, then theoretically the secondary market from a financial perspective kind of bids things up.
That's right.
Gotcha. And then again, don't know if you're allowed to get into details, but then certainly understand how you get revenue. But then in order to kind of, what's your vision kind of 5 years from now in terms of you're really scaling it up? Is it that you're an independent, or Nike or New Balance picks you up? Because there's obviously lots of use cases for those, bigger companies.
Yeah. So to answer the first one, revenue happens through the sneaker sales. So we take we take a different approach to the traditional companies where we are involving the collaborator directly in the economics of the sale, instead of just saying, hey, we'll pay you an endorsement fee up front, and then we make all the money on the back end. We sort of sign them up as partners because we want them to have real skin in the game and interest in the collection doing well. But it's pretty simple in that our revenue comes from the sneaker sales. A lot of the collections that we've done so far have been these very exclusive limited drops. We have a couple of collaborators on the calendar for 2023 that are much larger. And then in terms of what the future of the company is, we have a huge roadmap ahead of us with a lot of exciting stuff that I don't know what that would look like inside of another company. And we have no plan to, sort of try and get acquired anytime soon. I think that what we're doing is really interesting and different. And I love being an agile team that can really aggressively go after new opportunities, do things that don't scale because of, what stage we're at and, how quickly we can run experiments. So I really like the spot we're in right now.
Wow. And then with again, probably unlimited use cases, but, given that you're at BC in the college environment. So if the women's lacrosse team wanted to do a sneaker deal with you, tie in the whole NFTs, tie in a NIL sponsor, right? So like Red Bandana example, Empower Retirement is the kind of main sponsor of the Red Bandana game. Maybe it's a better use case. So then if they tied in some sneaker deal that was an NIL, tied in with the football team, that could easily cascade as well, correct?
Yeah, we actually are doing a BC NIL cohort drop. So it's not with a particular team, but we've got a couple of athletes we're talking to. We'll be announcing them shortly within like the next 30 days or so. So we're excited about that. But I do think there is an opportunity to do more involved things like with official partners, like you mentioned, Empower and the Red Bandana. That one makes a ton of sense because we're all aligned in wanting to do as much good as possible for the Wells Crowther Trust and help Allison continue to spread Wells' story.
Oh, amazing! So I'm just thinking, my son Tommy, it's at Alabama, right? So if the baseball team wanted to pay, kind of get their whatever sneakers and NFTs and all that, then there could be an additional resale, but then you could take that and go to, local merchants, for lack of better words, that may want to be trying to sell to, whether it's, maybe not as much car dealers, but maybe bars, restaurant, pizza places, kind of things like that, right? They get their logo on a sneaker and it's an NFT, and that could be a whole cool thing that then that merchant who's really funding the NIL deal then would pay for, right?
Yeah, it gets tricky with the teams if they have existing brand partners and sponsors, but
there'll be more individuals.
Yeah.
Gotcha. And then I don't know what you're allowed to say for pricing, but say if, I'm 59, so say I do 60th birthday party and I've got 100 friends and I want to do a sneaker run for that, kind of what's a ballpark kind of, price per sneaker?
It's really hard to say because it depends so much on the design and the materials are used. Is a pretty wide range.
Gotcha. Is there a low to high, or you don't want? And I appreciate if you don't want to say, but
it's not that I don't want to say. It's just so variable that it, I could give you a range, but it probably wouldn't be very useful.
Gotcha. All right, just crazy, fascinating. And then the authenticity. It's kind of like when you get if you have a signed football, right? You have those little, certificate labels. So I guess that's, somewhat similar, but then there's certainly, lots of, bigger, better use cases. So then now maybe talk about your sales model, which is unique from a lot of the kind of other enterprise, tech sales folks that we have on. So kind of how do you sell?
We sell directly to the customers, and our main channel is through the social accounts of our collaborators. So our thesis is that our collaborators have the best relationship with with their fans. They have a direct line of sight into their fans. They have direct lines of communication with their fans. Their fans are already going to their social profiles to get updates on them and see what they're up to. So we think that's the most effective channel. So most of the marketing happens through the collaborators. And then we just have a website or a subdomain on our website where people come to actually buy the sneakers. We are actually talking to a couple of partners that may want to sell on their own websites. We're pretty flexible on that, depending on who the partner is and what existing e-commerce solutions they have. But typically, market through the collaborator, sell on the Endstate site.
Wow, fascinating. So for Devontae Smith, then it would be through his Twitter or wherever people go to follow him.
Yep.
And albeit you're sold out there, but then there might be some. I guess there's a whole nother market which could be a clearinghouse for the secondary sales of your Endstate sneakers and NFTs, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's a big component of this. And, we're going to see more and more physical products be attached to NFTs. And I think that, the eBays of the world and some of these secondary marketplaces is going to become standard. Okay, if I want to sell any good that is of any significant value on the secondary market, it better have a corresponding digital certificate of authenticity. Whether or not that's actually an NFT that exists on a blockchain somewhere may or may not be the case, but I think that that's what people are going to start to demand for secondary sales of products in the near future.
Wow. And then do you envision, I guess, first question, how did you ever pick sneakers for this?
I'm a lifelong sneakerhead, so I just picked what I thought was the coolest and most interesting product category that was out there. And from a business model perspective, not everyone can make a sneaker, right? Like Stephanie has 25 years of experience doing this. She's got 25 years of connections in manufacturing. We have a design process and manufacturing process that's 1/3 of the typical time, right? So we can get a new sneaker out in like 6 months, whereas it takes the traditional companies about 18 months to bring a new silhouette to market. So the fact that we can do that and it's not a commodity, like, I love hoodies and, t-shirts like everyone else does, but so many people can create hoodies and t-shirts. We're inundated with, free t-shirts and hoodie opportunities. It's a really differentiated offering for the collaborators, and it's in a culturally relevant and coveted product category like sneakers. Like, people go crazy over sneakers. I'm one of those people, so I know. And to be able to offer that to some of our collaborators is really interesting.
Wow. All right. How many pairs of sneakers do you own?
I don't know if I can even count. It's in the neighborhood of, I would say that I have currently in my house is in the neighborhood of 50.
Okay. It's not too bad.
It's not great. It's not great. Like one of our investors at Endstate is in the thousands.
Wow. And that's a whole nother, just for the traditional sneakers, that's a whole other secondary, right? So if you're half as effective, and you should be more effective, right? But even if you're half as effective as that whole secondary game, I mean, the sky's the limit, right, for Endstate?
Yeah. Yep.
And then do you see branching off, you think about, you said kind of hoodies and shirts, that may not be as appropriate, but you could see golf balls, footballs, soccer balls, maybe types of hats, glasses, different. I mean, there really could be, for what Endstate's doing with sneakers, really could be across almost any product or anything that you touch, correct?
Yeah, we actually do have an apparel collaboration that's slated for early 2023.
Wow. It's crazy. So from a company perspective, really exciting. If I were coming out of college or experiencing this space, I'd love to work there. Do you have any openings now?
Yeah, we're hiring a full stack engineer. We're hiring a marketing manager as well. So still growing. As you mentioned, we raised money at the right time. As you all know, timing is just about as important as any other skill you can have in business. And of course, it's mostly luck. But we did raise at a great time. So we're in a good cash position despite all of the messiness that's happening in the broader crypto market. So we're hiring and growing aggressively. And like I said, we've got a really exciting collaboration pipeline for 2023.
Wow, awesome. And then you guys have a physical office?
Yep, we have a physical office in Boston, but some of our employees and contractors are also remote, so we're a hybrid team.
Gotcha. So no metaverse office yet?
It's in the works, actually. So we do have a metaverse environment that we're building, but no, we're not plugging in and putting on goggles every day quite yet.
Wow. So if I'm looking to work there as you continue to scale and go and grow, what's special about the culture, would you say?
Everyone at the company has an entrepreneur mindset, which I love, right? Everyone takes ownership of outcomes. They are ambitious. They take initiative to, figure things out and don't wait and sit on their hands. We just have such a great culture. And then, of course, the things that everyone says, mutual respect, a lot of really high trust relationships. Like I feel like people give lip service to that, but that's really true at Endstate. We really are a very effective and close team, and there's a high degree of trust. So it's just a blast to go to work every day and get to work with so many talented people. Like on the design side, some of the stuff they put out is just so mind blowing. Like I can't fathom how they put pen to paper and come up with a new sneaker design from scratch. It's super cool for me to watch. But across the board, from our engineers to our business development to the design team, just a really strong, exciting team.